Oh, and welcome to the DM's Book Club. Yay! A podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might put it in our role-playing campaigns. This is a first. With me today, I am joined by the wonderful Hamilton, GM and host extraordinaire of Dragon's Duel, for some collaboration episodes. Hamilton,
Yes.
how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. It's very weird being hosted for once,
Yes.
I must admit. So, yeah, no, I'm very good. I'm very excited to be here. We've got some great things we're going to talk about. And I am, as you know, #1 fan of the show. I've watched quite a of them.
But after my mother, I think it's
Okay.
it's you and my mother. I think are the most regular ones. But I am very appreciative of that. I guess before we start, then, do you want to talk to us a bit about your RPG experience and just maybe tell us a bit about Dragon Duel
Ooh,
and what
okay.
that is all about?
Right, RPG experience, short and sweet. I originally was into RPGs when I was a preteen, young teenager in the 90s. So I told this on another podcast that I did where I got interviewed, where I had a very weird experience with a friend whose mum was American, who took me to Glastonbury at 4 o'clock in the morning, got us up when I was staying at my friend's house, took me to Glastonbury tour, told me to put crystals in the tour, and freaked us out in the middle of a rainstorm. It was like the weirdest experience ever. And afterwards, because it's Glastonbury, took us to this little shop and said, "Oh, you can just buy some books, because we clearly looked freaked out." She was a major hippie. She was lovely, but yeah, super. And it was a whole experience. Anyway, without boring too much of the details, ended up in a shop that sold loads of Forgotten Realms books, like randomly. I was like 11 or something. I don't know, 10, 11. And yeah, just thought, she said, you can buy a book, and I said, oh, okay, I'll buy this one. And it was one of the Forgotten Realms sort of Drizzt novels of the time. And sort of, I don't think it was the first one. It was like a random one. And I can't remember it because I was so young. When you read books when you're young, you don't take them in.
No.
But my friend also at the same time bought a player's handbook because they sold it was just like one of those shops. And me and them used to play the Planescape Torment games on the computer. So we got into it. So he started doing some D&D groups and he got really into it. I just read the books really. And so I had a bit of a time with sort of Warhammer as well at the same time. And that's when I was a teenager. Then I hit about 27 or something like that. I moved from London back to Bath and sort of thought, hey, I should try and make some new friends again because I'm moving to a new city. Like, what could I do? So I joined a board gaming group and started a D&D group out of that.
Wow. So were you straight into 5th edition then, or were you
that was
an early
5th edition? Yeah, that was straight into 5th edition. I went to a board game group that had this quiet corner where there was people making noises and speaking in funny accents. And I was like, what are they doing? And and they were like, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons! I haven't played that in years. This sounds like fun. And so yeah, and then the usual 4 years later, I start a D&D game show on Twitch. Of course, as the natural.
Why don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love how that your origin story has got to be the for me the most interesting and bizarre one.
Yes.
And then you're like, but enough about that. I'm like, that sounds like an adventure quest in itself. You must come to Glastonbury, quick, the crystals.
No, it was very strange. When you just go and stay at a friend's house, you're like, I'll go stay at their house on a Saturday night or something. Because I had to go to school on Saturdays because that's the way it was. So after school on a Saturday, went to their house, stayed the night. No talk of getting up early in the morning, just literally rap on the door. We need to get in the car. And it was like a thunderstorm. I remember it was literally.
Word.
And we were up the tour, and it was like if you jumped, you moved. Do you know what I mean? You jump, it was so windy. Because it's like in a plane. For people out there who don't know Glastonbury, it's just a plane, there's this little mound, and it was just I just remember feeling and then putting crystals in it and having to make wish it was just weird. It was so weird. It was just one of those moments. And that's not the weirdest thing that's happened to me. So we'll stay
Well, speaking of going, it sounds like you're on one of those limbo or planes of chaos. But so speaking of this seamless link of planes, you've chosen a very interesting topic today. So do you want to introduce what are we talking about today?
So we are talking about the factions of Sigil, or Sigil, if you're Matt Mercer.
Questionable.
Exactly. Yeah. I noticed that on your show you've done a lot of planescaping. Plane walking, I guess, and I thought this is a really interesting. They're an interesting group of people that don't know that basically, I remember reading that the people who wrote the Planescape and came up with the factions sort of said they were trying to come up with these factions ideas, and they said, oh, you know what about all those people at university go like, dude, what if the universe was, and then insert here, and each of those factions is meant to be one of those like, oh dude, but we're all like immortal, or we're all really dead, and stuff like that. And if you look at all of them, you can just think of the person who's just that's pop psychology sort of, but pop philosophy even sort of motto. So that's what they are. I think they're a really good thing to add to any campaign. I mean, I think Planescape's great, but I think it gives an idea of thinking about alignment differently, giving it a philosophy maybe, and I don't know if someone could bring that in to whatever they're doing, however they wish, because they do act on all the planes supposedly. So I like the idea when I was reading through this, because I've not really know much about Sigil or Sigil or however we pronounce it. And yes, this idea of having a faction is almost like an extra little thing. So obviously you're having your backgrounds, your classes, etc. And then it's like, here's something else on top of it. There's I'm sure you're aware of it, Hamilton, but there's Acquisitions Incorporated. They do a similar but on a much smaller scale, where you have positions in a company where there is the Documancer and all that sort of thing. So they have little things for this. This is obviously slightly higher up, so it affects everyone on every plane. And there's like a philosophy or a point of view about the multiverse, which I've not seen that before. But I guess before we get too much into it, just in case, not for me, but for the uninitiated, do you want to describe what Sigil is? Like, what are the main things to know about it, I guess? So Sigil itself. So I think it still actually exists in the current
it does,
It does, which is the sort of there's the outer planes and the inner planes, which people should know. So the inner planes are the material plane, the Feywild, Shadowfell, and the elemental planes. And then you've got the outer planes, and all these outer planes are seemingly connected to this thing called the Outlands, which is like a circuit. There's a big circle, and then at each of the sort of quadrants of this circle are all the outer planes. So the Nine Hells, Archeron, Battle.
Sorry, I'm not going to test you on what the names are. There's quite a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, I'm just trying to give a few. And then in the then each of those have a little gate town that goes to this outer ring, and then this little area's got funky weird things happening in the middle of it. And then right in the center is a spire with a sort of donut-shaped object that surrounds it, which is the city of Sigil, and it is the center of the multiverse in theory, and it is ruled. Let's not go into that. It's got portals to everywhere. It's called the City of Doors because it has portals to all of the other places. It's ruled over by a person called the Lady of Pain, who is pretty much immortal. Like I think always considered the highest of the highest. Sort of you can't fight her basically.
Yeah, she's. As I've understood, because again, from my brief look in all sort of the fifth edition stuff, there isn't much or too much on Sigil or Sigil currently, but obviously in older editions there are, and obviously there's lots of descriptions such as the Planescape one you sent us. But yeah, this idea of the Lady of Pain, like this sort of she's, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but no one's ever seen her. Is that right, or she's just like an overarching sort of presence?
Yeah, she does float around the sky. In Sigil.
Terrifying.
Exactly. She doesn't really speak. She doesn't speak. I don't think she speaks at all. I don't think anyone's heard her. But she has these creatures called Dabus, which look like the Grinch, basically. Like,
cool.
I can't remember the name of the people in the city, the town that they're. But and they don't talk either. They talk in those like pictograms that are like a boat
cool.
with it would be like or and then an M or like the sign shape of an or. So it would be like more. Without getting too deep into that.
So like pictograms, or as I think, like wingdings, essentially.
Yes, they speak like wingdings. Yeah, they speak in visual wingdings. It's a crazy place, I know. And and with that, it's because it's like no gods can get in there, so it's kind of free from the gods, and therefore it's sort of open to this philosophy, I guess. And that's where I think these factions have come in, and the Lady of Pain sort of maintains order of the factions. She doesn't like one getting too big or too small, and she does that by mazing people. Which is like, I don't like you, you're just going to get mazed and chucked in a maze for infinite time. Or just, you will just turn into blood. She's pretty powerful. She just like, points at you and you die. That's kind of what she does.
you're like, don't mess with her.
Yeah,
Essentially,
she's like killed gods and stuff. Like, she's, yeah, I think even there's lots of you can read loads about it. She's quite an incredible character.
Yeah, and yeah, just going back to there was in the document you sent me, there was a great thing about cause there's like 3 things to get the idea of the Planescape and stuff. So obviously, like you said, like that Sigil is the center of the multiverse, but whilst most people on their planes think they're the center, like no, it's Sigil, but no one plane is more important than the other. So you kind of mentioned that, and I quite like that idea that everything is equally important. And then there's this idea of the unity of rings. So there was a description of the outer planes is like a great road, or the great road is like a band, and the planes are like gemstones along it. And I just like that idea that each of them are so beautiful and different, and but they're all connected in this one sort of unit of a ring in some way. And then finally it's this idea of rules of threes, that there's always everything always comes in threes, which we were discussing about our next topic. Obviously, it's like that comes up there again, but. 3 is always like they talk about it in obviously in most literature as like a magic number, and it's like the power of 3 and the Triforce and all that sort of thing. You always see it everywhere. So it's just really interesting, I guess, to have those sort of here's 3 things you need to know before going to Sigil, and the final one is that everything comes in threes. So
I like that. That's very good. You're obviously taking on the concept completely, which is very good.
I have to. Got to read into these things. So then, well, let's start then with these factions. So what do we? So I guess when we talk about factions, obviously I know we've mentioned it being like a point of view of philosophy. But is there any? I guess like how many factions are there? Like, is it just 1 or 2, or is there multitudes?
There's lots of factions, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head. I think you mentioned it to me earlier, which is a 16.
It is a 16. I was about to go. It's a 16.
It is 16, but that rule of 3 still works because one of them is not a faction, if you know what I mean. Which is so it's 15 factions and 1 true independence. But we'll get to that. Yeah, and I think something that is similar to factions in Waterdeep is another thing that I just thought about as well. So there's a very similar like that. You not only have a philosophy, but you also can gain, if you want to play it fully, gain bonuses or benefits that relate to your position in the faction. So if you play Dragon Heist, there's a lot of stuff on that, and how it's very similar, sort of like doing deeds will gain you benefits that
and favors and stuff. Like I guess if you're with the Harpers or the Zentarum, or even like Gauntlet of the Order or the Hand or whatever it's called. I guess it's interesting. I didn't really see it as such like that, but I guess because that's obviously related to. Even though I know those particular factions or guilds operate throughout the whole Forgotten Realms, but that's still one plane. Whereas all of these particular factions, they apply to like what do they call it? They've got like the sort of the material plane, but then all the other planes as well. Like you could be a part of one of these factions, but not be on. You could be in the inner planes and stuff. So.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And some of them have like their home. They have like they always take a plane of existence that's their sort of main plane that sort of fits with their feelings, because all the planes sort of relate to the alignments, and then in that some of them, like the Harmonium, which we'll come on to maybe, they even have prime material planes of their own that they've inhabited and taken over in a sort of planar empire. So it's not just satisfied with taking over the world, they want worlds within these. So they've taken over other prime material planes to do their bidding.
Absolutely. And and just because I know we've not said it out loud, we're looking at Planescape campaign setting, a player's guide to the planes, and that's where we're getting all this information from. But I'm sure, like you saying, there was like all these other books related to that as well. But this is where we're taking the most of our information from.
If people want to go deeper, I recommend the Factol's Manifesto. You can get all of this on DM's Guild still, I think. That's where I got them. So but Factol's Manifesto goes deep dive. Like you get 10 pages per one. These are sort of 1 page sort of introductions to them.
And I was saying before we started recording as well, just to mention here that this is the first time when I was reading through a fairly short supplement. To be fair, like it's only 36 pages, but it's instantly for me the writing and the tone of it throughout. I was saying to you, wasn't I? It's just like. It's so accessible. Sometimes when I open the various tomes of D&D, I'm like, oh god, it's double columns, really small writing, zoom in, try not to die, like from not boredom, but just like sometimes it's quite dense. I was off topic. I was looking at 3.5 edition recently to make a character for a game someone wants me to play, and I just gave up because it was just. I'm sure that obviously I know 3.5 some people really enjoy it and stuff like that, but the book is incredibly dense in places. But what I loved about this particular supplement is that the writing of it, there is such a tone to it and such a voice for it, and it goes throughout as if like we've talked about, like with Volo's and Mordekainen and even Tasha's, it's like the guide or the person that the book is related to. There's not, as far as I could tell, there wasn't someone that's mentioned here who's the writer of it, but throughout the whole thing, there is this sort of tone, and it felt to me, I think I was saying to you, wasn't I, that it feels very Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman-esque, that sort of like whimsy, but also it felt very British, weirdly. I don't know if it was meant to come across like that, but it was just instantly something about it where I was like, it's like somebody talking to you in the pub, or you know what, it's like you were saying before about like high school and stuff. It's like someone sat you down, was it Carrie or whatever she's called from Mean Girls, and so goes, okay, here are all the people on the different tables, here's who you need to know. And it's just from that person, it's just that person's point of view.
No, it's beautiful, and that's the great thing about Planescape. I think that's why it's loved with a lot of people of that time, but even people who've got into, I've seen a lot of people doing campaigns in it now as well, but it has that it's that as I said it to you before, it's like the Elizabethan slang is all chatted put around it, so it's got words like the chant and you're all called Burks, and it's got it has its own character that's really endearing to, I think. And you're right, English is a really good like British sort of, well, I guess because the Elizabethan, but it's done in that sort of it's very aware of itself, self-aware, and which is particularly our
It's self-aware, but it's also not like, how can I describe it? I don't think it's necessarily mean or deprecating in any way. It feels, like I said, it feels like you've met someone down the pub who's willing to show you about the town, but it goes, don't go there, they're evil.
Exactly.
Don't buy it. That's not where you get the best curry. You get it from this place.
Very
that sort of
fact, and kind of treats you a bit like an idiot, and is happy to do it in a sort of
it's treating you like an idiot, or sort of patronizing you because they know best. And you're probably like, they probably do know best like at this.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's right. It's a really nice thing to read, and I think it's just fun and why I thought it would be good as well, like saying to your other people's campaigns, just even having these thoughts about how people might understand the planes in these different ways could just come up, just might breed some ideas about that sort of sense as well. Like it reads it to you because you're clearly not from the outer planes, and so it treats you like an idiot because that's how they think of anyone who's a primer, as they're called, or an outsider. So it's quite
that's very true as well, because a majority, or I would say probably 90% of most D&D campaigns will always happen on the material plane, but we've talked about in previous episodes about what if every so often you will go to a different plane, but like what if your characters are from a completely different plane? Like I always love the idea of Mechanus, which is the one with the cogs, and so cool. It's just and everything is average. Even giving damage is they just take average damage. I just think that's hilarious.
So it is so great, and I love this societal structure. And you did a podcast on them, didn't you? Modrons, particularly.
Modrons. Well, one day I'll do a full in-depth case study about how cool Modrons are.
Exactly. They are amazing. They are pretty cool. And I love just the different. So without going, you could just talk about all this stuff for ages.
You see what happens. This is why I warned you. It's like we have to cut each other off and be like, no, back to the thing. So where would we start then? If we're looking at the factions, which one would you say? Let's start with this one and go out from there.
Okay, so I guess what would I start with? I mean, I think I would start with the ones that are the most nihilistic, because that's just more fun. There's because they sort of group into little groups of factions that sort of have similar themes, but are like different variants on the same theme. So we obviously have, so then in that there's the key ones are, there's the Bleak Cabal, right? So
yes.
In alphabetical order. So the Bleak Cabal are basically misery in exile, because they just believe there is no meaning to life, right? There's no meaning to anything. It's all a lie. Anything that you believe in is just bullshit. It's not just chaos for chaos' sake. It's not lawful. It's just random, but not in the sort of. There are other people that are more chaotic. This is more just pure neutral, like true neutral. There's nothingness to this.
Yeah, I love that. There's a line in it. It says, "The multiverse isn't even a cruel joke because that would give it all meaning."
Exactly.
Like I like that idea. Like it's just like it's neither like it isn't, and so much of the times when we're not just doing D&D, but so much. Yeah, I've been in sessions as well when you're like, "What does it mean?" We've got all the pieces. You're like in your head as a DM, you're like, "Doesn't mean anything. Please move on from the door." So I do definitely empathize this idea that like there's just no meaning to it. Whoever said reality had to make sense, that's another line from the thing. And I just thought, God, that's so true. I guess because we always search for meaning and purpose and stuff. And I just thought that was such a, just out of the gate, obviously picking the bleak cabal, you're like, oh wow, actually, what should there be meaning? Probably. What if people don't have meaning to it? So yeah, very interesting to start with.
It is, but weirdly, they also then end up being the people that run the sanatorium as well, because because a lot of their people in their group, because they get so depressed, they end up just I'm finding no meaning. Sort of end into this. There's a I think in the other books there's a worry you can go mad from it, from being a member. That nickname is called the Mad Men as well. But what's lovely about them, I said this to you earlier, and I love about it is, and it's not in this one, it's not mentioned in this, but in the other books, is that because they find no meaning, they just feel like the only thing to do is be generous. Because there's no meaning to material worth, and there's no meaning to owning anything. So they don't really go for, if they have anything, they give it away, and they run soup kitchens, and they're just sort of like, so they, even though they think there's no meaning, they're not. There's other people that have their set of differences that they see. Like with that, then you might as well. They sort of see it as if there's no meaning outside, then maybe there's something inside, but they're not as strong as others. And with that, let's make other people happy. Because
I love that as a default view. None of it matters, but might as well try and get by as much as we can. Like that's such a motto for our time, I think.
It's so true.
Just looking at the bottom paragraph of this, for someone to join the cabal, they have got to do three things, which is quit looking for meaning, accept what happens, and look inward. So again, rule of three again, but again, I like that idea. The first thing, stop looking.
Just give up now.
Don't waste your time. Yeah, exactly. And accept what happens. That things do happen, and it's not necessarily because you've done something or someone else has done something. Just accept it. This is what's happening to you right now, and then look inwards for, I guess, a guidance or purpose, which is what you're saying. Like, well, look inwards. What would I like to do in this situation, even though it has no meaning?
Might have fun, sort of thing. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's that sort of like, but it's not hedonistic. It's just if there's nothing, why be bad? Just be good. I like it.
Yeah, I like that. Oh no, very good. So if we were jumping off from the bleak cabal, then where would we head off next? Would you say?
Let's go the other side. Then there's the Doom Guard, which is there we go. Which then is like, it is similar. They sort of see the meaning is entropy. Like they go, look at what is it? They say like, took a look around, everything's going down the tubes. Falling apart and stopping. People die. Rocks erode. Stars fade. Planes melt away. So like, look around you, it's all going to pot. Like, why bother trying to fight it? Let it happen. Because all of this stuff is leading to potentially something at the end that might be interesting. That's maybe, because that's the only thing that's constant. And therefore, again, you can so see this in like university. Someone, going, dude, entropy is like everywhere. Like we're all fated to die. It's just there's no point. Exactly, in fighting it. But they do fight in the other way, in that they are the armorers of Sigil. So and as a little thing that I noted from somewhere else is that they arm both the demons and the devils. Because
interesting.
Yeah, so they keep the blood war going because they don't want either of them to win because that will create some sort of order. But they just want them all to just kill each other off, basically, because that will just destroy that. They're a bit crazy, but yeah, that's what they look for. So they're a bit more actively engaged in making entropy occur.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, again, it talks about like if someone builds a house, they don't tear it down. The house is going to decay at some point. So it's that idea that they won't necessarily act straight away. So yeah, like the idea that they'll become armorers and stuff, but they're not. It's like an indirect thing, isn't it? And like I kind of like that in a way. Yeah, so different to the Black Cabal. Just like rather than there's no meaning in it, that death is the end and it will come for us. It reminds me so much of that film, like It Follows. I don't know if you've seen it. The horror. Yeah, it's a horror film that whatever this evil thing is, it's always following you, and it will catch up to you one day unless you pass it on. And that just, it's always there's so many great shots of it, like of people just chatting, and then in the background you see somebody walking towards the camera very, very slowly. It's
I don't like the sound of that. But it's a bit like in talking about books, the Amber Spyglass, the Philip Pullman with the death that's like outside the door, and it's your friend, and it comes closer to you. That reminded me of that a bit. But yeah, no, you're right. And the thing about the house I liked is that they say, but when you look at a house isn't new when it starts, because that's a tree that's been knocked down. It's stone that's been taken from the quarry. It's so even the house as new is already things that have been taken from their original source.
It's already the cycle of life and death and stuff like that. I hadn't even considered that. That's such an interesting thing that everything we use is going to be reused, and that cycle will ever continue. And I like that.
Death of the universe eventually, and there you go. Have fun.
No, I will. Ugh. All right, so those are two very interesting ones. What would you say out of the rest of the factions? Is there one that strikes out as like something completely bizarre or different? And you're like, whoa.
Okay, what's the most? What's the most bizarre? They're all pretty.
Oh, one you go. What? I guess because obviously with all these faction stuff, obviously, it's all right. Is there one? I guess I'll put it this way: is there one faction where if a player said, "I really want to play this," you go, "Oh, I'm not sure."
Yeah, Mercy Killers.
Mercy Killers,
yes.
Excellent.
Because, and as I've heard someone mention, they're not Mercy Killers. They don't kill you in mercy. They want to kill Mercy, right? So their whole theory is that judgment is everything is about judgment, and mercy is only for the weak. All right, and it's just a ploy. So there are no extensions. There's no circumstances. There is just law. And if you do not follow the law, you die, or you punish for it, basically. And they come as part of a three-headed factions of the lawmakers of the city. So there's the police, which are the Harmonium, who are sort of like the order keepers, and they believe they're sort of like lawful. They'd say they're self-lawful good, but they're sort of good in the sense that if you don't follow good, you die.
But that kind of good,
But it's like, you must be good, you must be ordered. Every order is the only, peace is the only way to manifest better life. And then you've got these governors, which are the fraternity of order, who do like the courts, and they're just about knowledge and creating laws. The Mercy Killers are your lawful evil, in a sense that you've broken the rule, and you're punished immediately. And they go around. They are the executioners, and I'm trying to think they be themselves above the law, and they're called the Red Death, which is So I wouldn't really. I mean, unless you were really keen on that, I don't think I'd have many players playing as them.
It's one of those things again. Just looking at it now, the idea that justice is absolute and perfect, but it's got to be correctly applied, and obviously that's what they do. For me, I instantly got, just because I've been watching lots of Doctor Who lately, the Jadoon, the space Rhino police, who again, it's okay if you don't see it, but essentially they'll go around and they'll try and find whoever it is, the suspect. But if someone gets in their way of correctly applying justice, they'll be like, right, dead. You assault on an officer, even though you try to stop them and all that sort of thing. So I've got strong Jadoon vibes. But I guess it's that sort of thing when people first start out role playing and stuff. And of course, this is where I do my staple, like, I don't want to yuck other people's yums. Like, if you can play whatever you want, and I'm sure that's fine. But when people maybe play a paladin for the first time, or and it's identifying, like, I am righteous, I am good, and then the rogue steals something, or there's a little bit of backhanded, like, oh, we'll just take this money and stuff, and that person doesn't deviate or doesn't role play, or role plays so to the point where they've got because in paladins you have the oaths, and obviously they keep to the oaths, and there's the various tenets, which sort of is their own philosophy in a way about what they fight for. And if they don't necessarily, these tenets are supposed to be vague enough so you can interpret them, but I find people who are just starting out are really stick to them, and so it's very hard to just be like, it's okay to it's okay, like if they a bit underhanded stuff, but you could say, well, I hope you're going to give that to charity rather than I don't know, killing the rogue.
Yes, exactly. I challenge you to a compelled duel, and that's it.
Yeah, and you're like, oh no.
I think it's also that sort of sense of like, with paladins as well as just remembering. I'm trying to think of a good example in media, but there's that sort of like, there are examples where you should be aware that it's your oath, and that part of the paladin thing should be kind of reminded. I try and do that. You've taken that oath, which shouldn't necessarily. So you're a part of the world, and there are bad people. So you're not necessarily going out your way to enforce that oath on others necessarily. I guess there's obviously certain rules to that, but I think that's how I try and make a paladin feel.
I do like that as a way of interpreting, because I guess people assume like, is that sort of thing, well, these are my tenets, so I must project them out, but actually it's a way for you inwardly to look at, I guess. I like that, just saying like, hey, not everyone's going to follow it, and that's okay. You can be as zealous as you like on certain things, but at the end of the day, obviously it's a collaborative story kind of thing. But I like that idea.
They could judge them.
They
can say,
like
I don't think that's good, but what you want, sort of thing.
No, absolutely. Well, then let's go on to the other ones then. So you talked about the Harmonium then.
Yes.
You said they were like sort of the police force in a way.
Yeah. So they sort of want order. They're sort of the guards of the city. That's what they go around and just enforcing people, making sure people are staying in line with the laws, however they are written. Which is generally the laws of it is just don't murder, don't steal. Your classic, classic laws.
Classic laws.
Exactly. But but on the other hand, they are, very much, they are the true paladin in that sense, and that sense of what you're saying, that there is a rule, and if you break it, you are going to go into prison, basically, and then you'll be dealt with by this other faction. And that their home is the jail, and as I said, they want this peace because they feel that peace is about the only time in which you can further knowledge, because it's all about, a lot of these people are about knowledge, collation, which is sort of a Planescape theme. And so they've gone to prime worlds and overtaken them to enforce order where they found chaos on them and tried to instill a peace. And it sort of seems to, they sort of put it in the other books a bit like it kind of works and people are sort of okay with it. Ish, but they're also under a massive empire, which is probably not very good. The only way to achieve peace is through war.
There's a bit at the top which made me chuckle. Was it the secret to the universe? It's simple. It's just that the Harmonium's always right.
Yes.
It's that sort of like my way or the highway, and it's. Like you said, like they want peace, but only if it's their way.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of they want to control it in some way, which I really loved as an idea. It's like, well, peace is good, only if we sort it out, and it's done through our methods and stuff. So I quite like that. Also, almost sort of like it really, I don't know, it really says a lot about them. I guess it's like rather it's like you said, like maybe with this, obviously, sort of like the free factions that are all about the rules and stuff. I like this idea. It's just like, well, we've interpreted rules in our way, in our favor. Yes. So we're gonna do it like that.
Exactly, and that's the point with the three. So then theirs is like, we have a law and it's our law, and our law creates order. The other one is like a pure justice law is the function of law. So law is law of there is right and wrong, and you're punished for bad is punished, good is that's it, sort of thing. So theirs is they are above the law, but theirs is a bit more purer because they're not trying to achieve anything beyond law itself, like delivering justice. But then the Fraternity of Order, who are the sort of courts, their idea of like law and knowledge collection is purely so that they can break laws by finding loopholes. So there's sort of they're just the three facets of how you could interpret lawful. And I think that's quite nice. As I said, like, it helps you maybe get an understanding of how you could play with those alignments in a sort of experience of a faction. So that's sort of they're all about the only point, their whole reason is to find loopholes in the multiverse so that they can control the multiverse and make it into their own will, but through the manipulation of law. So I guess it's like physicists wanting to figure out the meaning, like all the building blocks of the universe, so that we could maybe make our own realities. Like I guess it's there. Sort of.
Yeah, no, learning the laws and then learn how to break them makes you the most powerful thing because it gives you that best advantage. I think that's such a incredible thing in a way, because obviously all the different planes have various different physics and different laws unto themselves. Obviously, like for example, we talked about Mechanus, where everything is just like neutral and everything is completely average. And obviously, I know we talked about it before on the podcast. There is various optional rules you can have about just changing your alignment from that. So I love the idea that there's a group of people that look to these and go, okay, how can I put this to my advantage and all that sort of thing. I think there's something in that, isn't there? Because it's almost a different kind of I was in a different kind of clever. That's not what I mean. But it's that sort of bit more planning ahead and stuff. But using the rules to their advantage is just a different way of looking at it. So I really like that.
They sort of say a lot of them are wizards, and I think that's a good thinking space to get into. Like we're saying, the harmonious sort of paladins, like sort of that sort of true paladin we were talking about that people can get a bit stuck in. Whilst they're more the wizards. And I think of like Caleb Widogast sort of wizard, that sort of like, I'm going to find out all these bits of information so that I can manipulate reality. It sort of makes, so I kind of...
And I just noticed, because you were saying before about the primary plane of where, this faction is, it is Mechanus, where everything aspires to be the perfect order. And I was like, oh, of course. Silly. But I like that idea that they're just on the big cog wheel. They just have all these wizards going, right. I've got these transcripts, these contracts from various things. Look what I found, and they're just talking over it. But also, oh god, now I'm just imagining like a big meeting of wizards on Mechanus where everyone has monotone voice. Everything is perfectly ordered. There's someone that's timekeeping. The Modrons come in with teas and coffees at various regular intervals.
I want to see. That's so cool. I think that would be amazing to go to.
Oh man,
yes.
God, oh no, that'd be terrible. Like a Teams meeting, but on different planes. Like.
No, I just love to see it because it'd be like one of those Swiss clocks, wouldn't it? Basically.
Oh yes, absolutely.
The tea coming out of the doors, then they go away again, and
a constant order, just clicking along. Oh yeah, absolutely.
A really boring Wallace and Gromit.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we've covered quite a few of them then. And you've obviously said, is there a particular one that we've not talked about that you're like, this is my favorite one?
Oh, okay, favorite one. So I do like the as a lapsed Buddhist, as I have been in my past. There's a couple of them that sort of fit with that sort of theory, and I quite like them because of that. So they're sort of three again.
Yeah,
so there's
perfect.
And there are different types of Buddhism that you could take into it. So a lot of these are based on quasi-religious and religious themes, as well as other like philosophies. But so there's the Transcendent Order, which is more like the Taoists. They are sort of get rid of your thoughts. It is all about action and immediacy and instinct. And so
in the moment, isn't it? That sort of,
and sort of that sort of you and so their main place is the gymnasium, and it's all about training and becoming, freeing your mind. You're proper Neo and Morpheus.
Morpheus.
Exactly. And that's what they're all about. And they have a really cool room in their main house, which is the gymnasium, which is a room where you float in like an infinite plane sort of space. It's sort of like a demi plane they've created, and you go in there and everyone takes time just to float in what do you call it, those sort of chambers which have got no not an anechoic chamber, but the one that Homer Simpson goes into and trips out.
it's like a sensory deprivation tank.
That's it. That's the one.
There you
they
go.
have one of those, and you're sort of meant to go in there and spend hours just trying to remove your ability to sense, to have any senses, and just get to your pure inner thoughts.
Again, just talking about the writing of it as well. There's a great sentence here which goes, "Problem is, some people start thinking and mess it all up."
Exactly.
And just again, it's just again that sort of very down to earth. Like, look, the reason why people think like this is it messes up. It adds hesitation and doubt, and that's rubbish. We want to act on instinct. I'm like, God, thinking complicates things. It is very much buy now, pay later, though. I kind of like that in the sense of like, do it. And I guess I don't know, like, again, obviously it's only through reading this thing, it's like the idea is like, be in the moment, act now. But me just being a very anxious person in general, it's always me that then goes, what are the consequences if other people do this to me? And I'm the one that's picking up all the bits and pieces. So obviously I know that's not the point of this faction per se, but I just think about the other people and go, oh my god, what have they done to the deprivation tank? Oh no, I'm going to clean this all up.
But I guess the whole point is then they instinctually will keep it clean. I guess. No, you just get the mod runs in. That's what you do for the day.
That's what you do. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god, a mod run cleaning service. I definitely could do with one around this flat. No joke. So that's sort of one then, because you talked about two others then. So what are the others?
The sort of semi flip side, but also similar, is the Society of Sensation, or the Sensates, which is pretty obvious. They are just purely about the only way to experience and understand the universe is by experiencing as much as possible, and by doing more and more and tasting the wines of every plane and understanding it, you might just get a hint of what's behind all of it, what's the common thread, and that's how you will gain enlightenment through that. I think they're seen a little bit as sort of just eyes wide shut, if you know what I mean. A little bit, yeah. But I think they're sort of less. I think I read that they're somewhere else that they're more like Epicureans than hedonists.
Yeah. So the pleasure, the idea of pleasure, to enrich oneself and stuff. Yeah, exactly. I definitely got that.
Rather than like debased or bad, or it's pure Dionysian sort of things.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't go that far, does it? Yeah, for me, I see this instantly as the would-be social influencers on the Planescape Instagram.
Yes, 100%.
Here's us at a wine tasting on our vineyard in Italy. And you're like, oh, bastards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it is. They are. I think someone also called them, like, at the times it was in the 90s, and I was reading like a review from that time, like they're the yuppies of it as well. Like it's just
really,
just get it. Yeah, I can so see them. Here's me at Meccana, selfie, with the modrons.
Hashtag sensation. Yeah,
sensation. Here I am sliding down to Gehenna, 45 degrees. Yay! It's like extreme sports for the sensates. Yeah, no, 100%.
And it is like you said, it's like it says here, like the beings got to savor the intensity and explore the complexity. Don't just guzzle it. Find all the flavors within. So it is that. Yeah, it's not like hedonistic to the point where you're a glutton. It is about trying things and almost like making notes and going, oh, this and this. But yeah, I definitely recall from like when I first started working at my work, there was somebody who was like. They're asking me where would I go on my first paid holiday, and I was like, oh, I'm not so sure. He goes, oh, let me tell you all about Marrakesh. And I was subjected to almost like a 30-minute of stuff, and I was like, I'm all right. But obviously they knew so much about it, and obviously they'd been traveling and stuff like that. But it did feel a very privileged conversation that I didn't consent to, I guess.
Fine. By the way, I recommend Morocco generally. It's one of my favourite countries. Just want to put that out there. For if anyone it doesn't need me to tell you that, but it's
it's one of those things. I would love to go, but it was just one of them. Let me tell you all about it, and they just went.
And they just gave you too much detail, and
yeah, definitely. But it's one of those things where I was like, yes, but it's one of those things where someone hypes up something for you, so there you go. I will never watch it for like 5 years, and then you come back to it, and then you go, that was really good, and then you tell them, they're like, well, why didn't you watch it at the time? You're like, oh, you spoiled it for me. So
yeah, because you told me all. 100%, I'm with you, and you can imagine these people being quite annoying to be around potentially, as you said. That sort of I can imagine trying to tell you how to eat your food, and you're like, I just want to eat this pie and chips. I'm okay, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Of course, yeah, you're right. They wouldn't. It's not necessarily being like a fussy eater per se, but it'd be like you have to open the oyster like so, and then you have to swallow it like this, and then gurgle it around your mouth and get all the flavor. Oh my god.
Exactly. Or you're just not doing it right, and you're just like, just fuck off, okay? I just want to drink my pint, right?
I love the idea of you have like the Black Cabal and someone from the Sensation, just like, there's no meaning in this. No, just try it, you'll find something. No, there's no meaning in this.
Well, you can just imagine just looking at each other in complete disdain and just like, what the fuck, you just got it so wrong, that's what's great about it as well, because this city, and that's what when I've done a Planescape campaign, is that you just got to try and you can have these really enjoyable moments when these factions meet, and how they can just look at each other with that sort of humour of just like very aware of each other, and just obviously thinking they're all idiots. Each other is an idiot.
But everyone, it's almost like you talk about like a sort of a balance in a way that no one faction is necessarily important than the other. They just have all their different views and stuff. And whilst they'll probably have like you said, like some judgments on other people.
Yes.
It all works like because it's all very different. So there's always a place for everyone, I think.
100%.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was number 2, right? Of that one. Is there one more?
Yeah, there is, and they sort of flip between 2, but there's sort of the sign of 1, which is that every individual is unique, and that is what makes the universe great. Is actually the uniqueness of every individual, and that they also believe that I think that each individual person is the center of their universe and the universe.
Yeah.
And so, and the universe is only created by their imagination. And there's that funny line that they go, so exactly who is imagining the universe? Well, that part even the scientists don't know for sure. One of them is, but they can't agree on which one. But the safest bet is just to fall in with their faction, because any signer could be the source of everything. So, maybe it's a safe bet because one of them is probably the center of the universe, and you're there.
How interesting! I like that. Yeah, it's very much like and this is where my philosophy degree is going to let me down. But there's like the I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
The idea that as soon as you think about something, you exist, and that sort of thing. That's sort of very, very philosophical on that. So I did like that.
Yeah.
Without the self, the multiverse ceases to be, and. It always reminds me of there's that quote. It's like, don't be the NPC in your own story, but you are the hero. And this applies to real life, obviously, as well. But like, don't stand by, make the choice, do the things. Because it's your world, and you'll only live in it, once, or if you're reincarnated, all that sort of thing. But you should make the most of it. Very similar to the previous ones. But something about that idea that you don't know which one it is, so just believe them.
Just believe all of them. Yeah, one of them will be fine, and it might be you. You never know. So,
you never know.
Exactly. And they also believe that they can adapt the world based on their thoughts alone. So there's that sort of it's not Taoism, is it? But I can't remember which term it is. But it's that sort of like The Secret. Do you ever hear about The Secret?
No. What's that?
So my mum had it. I think it's like a little video that went around, which is like, you can put thoughts out into the world and they'll come back to you. So you sort of say like, I'm gonna be rich, and if you put out I'm gonna be rich, you'll become rich, or whatever sort of thing. And it's one of those sort of like, if you put good thoughts out and then you can manipulate it. And it says that you better be, it says where is it? Better be nice designers, because they just might decide to imagine a body right out of existence. Don't think it can be done? Maybe not. But then a bashers are fool to take the risk. Lots of folks disappear without a trace, and more than a few are enemies of the signers. So makes one think, doesn't it? That's great.
I love that. Again, the tone of the writing through there is like that, almost sort of whispering, like, well, I don't know, exactly. Sort of like whispering in. I love it.
Yeah, probably should. Maybe some people do disappear. It could be.
That's sort of the paranoid conspiracy theorist, like, wow, wait a minute, and then just I love that. Yeah, you're thinking so much like I think, therefore I am, and they go, but what if I don't think? What if somebody?
Yes, exactly.
I was just thinking. Oh God, has it just gone from my head? It probably has. No, it's gone from my head. I'm sure it was very important what I was thinking of, but it was something to do with like that thinking and existing and stuff. But anyway, but you said right at the beginning of this, obviously we've got 16 of them. We covered quite a few of them.
We are.
You said one of them doesn't really count or isn't part of it. Which one is that?
So they're called the in-depths, or the free league. So they are the independent. And I think you said earlier that that one of them was the sort of example of our life, there's no meaning, and that, which was the Bleak Cabal, I think you said. But I think these are actually more what I see as the world we live in today, which is that because it's sort of nobody's got is sure to the key to the truth, so it pays to just keep your options open. Maybe the multiverse is lost, maybe it's as the others say, maybe it's not, doesn't really matter. It just, like, we can change our minds, let's just go with the flow, and we'll believe what we'll believe, and one day we'll believe something else the other. And I don't mean that's completely everyone's like that, but it's that sort of sense that they're an open individual society of, like, everyone's allowed to believe what they want to believe, and let's just sort of accept that and all be, but we're not strongly one side or the other. We're just sort of all kind of, maybe they're right, maybe there's a god, maybe there's enough. Maybe there's reincarnation. Maybe there's this. I'm not quite sure. So why don't we just all group together and be friends? And I kind of...
Oh, yeah.
So that's what they kind of do. They kind of made a faction because if you're not in a faction, you're sort of a bit alone in the city. So that's what they do. And they sort of... Yeah, it sort of says no one tells them what to do. They all kind of work for anyone. They'll take the piss out of anyone and sort of go with the flow kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, again, thinking about that writer's voice and stuff we talked about. This one particularly does feel very Monty Python-esque. Yeah. Like the old sort of fashion where they would like take the piss out of certain topics of the time and stuff like that. And yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like I guess it's like when you see factions screaming that they're all wrong, they keep pulling us in different directions, blah blah blah, and it's just like. Yeah, just it's time to change. We'll break free, etc. And let's work it out together. But it doesn't matter.
What's necessary at the time, we'll use to make it work, sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I've just remembered what we were talking about before, because you were talking about the secret and this idea that you put thoughts out into the world. So we talked off stream about this, but the Artist Way by Julia Cameron, which was like a 12-week. It said a way to unblock your creative pause, but definitely a self-help book. I'll say that now before everyone goes, it's a self-help book. But one of the things it talked about was the idea of serendipity. Yeah. So if you said, like, I really want to do something with D&D, I want to run a D&D game. Maybe it's something as simple as that. And then what the universe will do, will hear it, and then it will present you with an opportunity. But you yourself have to identify that opportunity to do it. Yeah. And it's that moment of going, oh, I see an opportunity. There's lots of people going, oh, we want to play regularly on Thursdays when no one's around, and you're like, I could do that. And if you recognize it, then you should go for it. Sort of leap at that chance now.
I seriously believe that to be true, though. I'm kind of with you on that belief. That is my personal belief.
I think what I try and do with all my things is that if I want to do something, I'll put it out into it. I mean, we'll have opportunities. Obviously, like Dragon's Duel was an opportunity for me. I was like, yeah, I've got time to do it. And I was like at the time going, I need to do more collaborations and stuff. And I was like, all I can do is just go, hey, let's do this, and then look at us now, So I think there is definitely some bits to it, but and I would also argue, going back to that idea of the rule of three, I think it comes in threes as well. So I've noticed definitely opportunities where I've got, that's a second opportunity in as many days, there'll be a third one or something like that. But that's my own philosophy, actually, thinking about it. This idea of serendipity. And, if you want something, the universe will hear you and present you an opportunity to get it. You just have to recognize it as an opportunity.
That's right. I think someone might argue, but I agree with it. And I think I don't know what's at work.
I'm sure it's a lot of hooey at certain times. Like it'll be ridiculous.
I think there is something to it. I think they also there is I think the beauty of it is that if you just put yourself out there, there's so much out there already, and so many other people wanting to do the same thing, because there's so many of us, and we're so lucky to have the world we have, that we can just find people who want to play D&D on any day.
Absolutely.
Exactly, and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's truth into it. There's truth to it.
Yeah.
That's what's great about this as well. Reading these is you kind of see your own philosophies in it, and you kind of pick them up, and there's something nice about sort of seeing how that works into other ways, I guess.
Yeah, I guess with the whole sort of Planescape supplement, looking at it, obviously there is a bit of history about obviously the planes and stuff like that, and obviously how to create characters for these planes. Some really good advice on that. And I think what's nice about this is, like you said, it is a deep dive into some history written in a certain way, but it's also, at the end of the day, it makes you think, to me, when you're building your own adventures or your own homebrew stuff, it's like, it's like one of the things like, you should put factions in it. It's not, of course, they're going to be, even if it's just like, I don't know, the farmers versus the fishermen, or opposing views, but don't have to necessarily lead to violence. Yeah. I hadn't considered it before when creating, say, a town or anything like that. So I think this supplement's been really interesting, because these, again, it's all it is points of views. It's not necessarily like one is better than the other, or is necessarily corrupt, or has a big influence on the monarch or something like that. So it's been a really interesting read. I guess if you were going to put, I'm sure you have put factions and stuff into your own Planescape campaigns. So is there anything you would advise to people who are going about to do this, like to add factions or to have players introduce factions to their campaigns?
I think the one thing that you picked up on, like, if you wanted to take the ideas of them but not directly use Sigil and those factions is that I think they're quite a nice way to create, as you said, like maybe religions or theologies in your own campaigns, or to create, because they're a bit more like that, and some of them are a bit more just lore about, like have a lore based function which you could use to try and help you understand how the guard might work in that city or something. But I think you could try and bring them in that sense, more the sort of, here's a theology that's not related to a theology that directly that and gives you a way to have a lot of morals that they might own, and benefits and boons that you might want to gain from that, and gives you theories on how they might work well with different classes. So that could be an interesting way. The other way is if you wanted to make your own homebrew campaign, if you wanted to make it have this sort of philosophical edge, then you could take these directly. And I think the third way, let's go with the third way, is if you're just struggling with alignment, to just use these as a different way of using alignment choice. Just sort of say, when you look at these factions, which one sort of defines your character's belief system the most, without it being religious or good or evil. It's kind of on those terms. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I think they would probably go with this, and then you'd say, well, actually, that's probably a true neutral, or that's probably chaotic evil. But it kind of helps you define it without it being these just amorphous terms of good, bad, that's kind of thing.
I think that's such a good point as well. Yeah, sometimes, because again, one person's definition of good is not necessarily an objective version of good. So yeah, I think that's totally true. And yeah, with all the stuff recently with Tashes, I know I always mention Tashes in every bloody episode, but the talk about you don't need alignment, and then people are like, but what can I do for that? And I know, like I said, like I talked briefly before about Paladin Oaths with the tenets and stuff like that. That's one way of being. But I think having philosophies that if you read into it, you probably go, oh, I think interpreting that is, like you said, a true neutral or a more lawful character. So you don't have to necessarily pigeonhole things. So I think that's such an interesting idea. So having that idea of factions, which isn't like necessarily like you said, a religious order or maybe a physical guild, perhaps. It is just a way of life that is just sort of hanging over people, I guess.
Like it might be just the way this town believes the world, like the one we haven't talked about, which is the Athar, which are they believe the gods are all just mortals that are just super powerful, because they know that if you go, hey, this guy Dave's a really good cobbler, and everyone goes, he's probably the god of cobblers, and everyone starts believing he's the god of cobblers, he will become the god of cobblers in D&D. So that's the thing. So if you can make Dave the cobbler god from just believing in it, then can't everyone be a god?
I love that idea. Like again, very Monty Python. He's not the Messiah. Exactly. He's a very naughty boy.
Exactly. 100%. And so,
but I just to pick up on that as well, that you're saying like that, like a whole town believes it. That's the idea. Like you could literally, it doesn't have to be the individual character, but it could be a whole town adopts this sort of philosophy, which again, it's such a great way to get the motivations for it. So the main majority of those nations is this, but also there are some fringes and people who, it's again so just thinking about it when you're building your town stuff, like having an idea of philosophy, it doesn't have to be very fleshed out. It could literally be one or two lines, or even just
why do they believe it? Like why do they believe that the gods are not real? Like what's happened to this town that gives them that belief? It's like someone did they have a hero that fought a god and killed it, or the god just ignored them completely with the harvest year after year, and so they just thought, they're full of crap, and
they just become jaded. Absolutely.
Or, I don't know. So it could be, I don't know, they're just kind of an interesting ways of doing it, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, Hamilton, I'm so sorry, we've run out of time. We've talked for like a whole hour on this, but it's been absolutely, I know, but I think obviously like we've covered only like a bare fraction of it. There are so many other factions, bare fraction of a faction. Yes. Sorry. But obviously, I highly recommend having a look at a player's guide to the planes. Really interesting. I hadn't really considered the idea of this sort of having a philosophical background to your character, and it just adds a little bit. So thank you for introducing me to that. Really, really, really interesting read. So I guess just to round us off, Hamilton, why don't we signal boost whatever you're doing? Let's look at that.
Okay.
What are you doing? So what have you got coming up?
What have I got coming up? So I do Dragon's Duel, as I said. It's a D&D game show where I take contestants through 6 rounds vaguely related to the 6 ability modifiers to score points to a unique character every week. That's what we do. We are on twitch.tv/dragons_duel, and you can find us at Dragons Duel, one word, on Twitter, and you can find me at my Twitter handle, which is down here. And so we've just come to the end of season 2 of the actual game shows. So we had 7 this year. I know that sounds like not a lot, but because it's so difficult to organise so many people, because they're all guests. We've had though fantastic people like D&D Beyond, podcast, the Dungeon Initiative. We've had Paradise RPG. We've had Check These Out. So many amazing. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. The Cast the Die. I always say the Cast Die. Anyway, get it wrong, way around. But so we come to the end of that, and now we're taking all these crazy, wonderful creations on a series of one-shots, which will be starting in September. The first weekend of September, I think it's September the 4th, correct? Yes, that's right. That is right. Saturday. It is. I know it is.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
Hooray!
Saturday,
Yes.
September 4th will be the first one of those. I think by the time this comes out, we're doing some backstory shows. We're making backstories using a really cool card system I found, which just gives you like prompts for backstories.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Which is really good. And we did the first recording of that, and the first one that's coming out the 28th. I think so. You might see that before this comes out. But yeah, that's what we're doing, and then we're going to take a break, and we've got some cool other funky stuff we're going to be doing whilst we're in break with potentially someone on this show.
What?
It's not me. So who could that be?
Who could that be? Yes, I know we've got. Yes, yeah. I don't know if you can talk about it just now, but yeah, I'm very excited. It's a brand new system to me, and just talking about world building for that has just been like very, very exciting. Yes. But yes. I will just round off by saying my name is Fiona. I run the What Am I Rolling podcast, which is a twice month. Yeah, it's going very well.
So I had to get it in there.
Get in. It is a twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast. As Hamilton asked, it is going very well. Bluebeard's Bride is currently going out just now. I've got actually my own other backstory episode. I think it's coming out after that, and I've been talking about it for ages, but I've just finally edited the Warhammer one-shot way back from January when we recorded it. It's now finally done, and I just need to put it out. It's a very exciting, really enjoyed it. It was our friend, Chris from Darker Days Radio, they do all sort of the Warhammer, Wrath and Glory and all that sort of thing, and it was very good for him to come onto my podcast and realise that everyone on my podcast has no idea about Warhammer, apart from one person.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, I've got like white dwarfs all on this wall.
I was going to say, you said at the beginning you've got your own sort of thing, so I'm sure you'll enjoy that episode when that comes out. But I guess until that time, we will be, and I can never end it. I always
go, love you, bye!
Love you, bye. All right, I will do that. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. So, as Hamilton says, love you, bye!
Bye!